Hi everyone, welcome back. For today's mani, we're going to be playing with dip powders from Valkyrie Dips. We're going to do a refreshing, beachy kind of mani here on a set of press-ons on the shape Short Coffin. We're also going to be using all dip liquids today, so we are not going to be using any gels. All right, so I'm just doing a very thin layer of dip base on the entire nail. I like to start right below that cuticle line and then work that product up. And I do like to use the cupcake method. I mean, you totally could dip into that jar, but I feel like I have more wiggle room with that cupcake liner and more space to prevent like any bumping. So right now we have a really beautiful color. So this is a darker blue, but it's not like a pure navy. It's still like that refreshing blue. And then we're going to pair it with a really fun terrazzo piece dip that's going to just kind of give like a whole beachy, refreshing look. At least that's what it looked like to me once this whole set was completed. But that is the game plan for today. We're going to end up doing 2 coats of each. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks when you're playing with those terrazzo piece glitters as well. So that is the game plan for today. All right, so let's dive into Clean Slate here for a few moments and enjoy all its beauty in action. And then I'm going to pop back in just a few minutes. All right, now it's time to dive into the beautiful terrazzo dip powder called Skipping Stones. It's such a beautiful color. It has like this muted light blue base, and then it has these really fun terrazzo pieces in it. Now that first dip, you really just want to build up the color on the nail and just have a good base foundation. So I'm not too concerned that I'm not picking up any of those pieces that are in this dip powder, those terrazzo pieces. I'm really just focusing on building up that color for that first coat. So again, we're going to do this on 2 different nails today, and we're just going to go in with a very thin layer of dip base, and then again we're dipping into that cupcake liner. And I feel like Clean Slate and Skipping Stones, just the base color alone is just like really making that Clean Slate blue just really pop. All right, so we're just making sure that nail is completely covered. I did pick up some of those terrazzo pieces there on the sidewall there. I'm just making sure those are super, super flat. And that is definitely the key when you are working with either dip liquids, the gel method, especially when you are making press-ons. You want to make sure you are taking time to make sure everything is pressing super flat, because you want to keep that shape of the nail without adding any extra bulk. All right, so now for that second dip here, we're focusing more on those terrazzo pieces, and you can see here we picked up quite a few. So I am always going to add a few more in some bare spots, so don't be intimidated if you do not pick up as many as your heart desired, because you can always add more. So this one kind of was laying a little funny on the nail, so I just took that one completely off here, and I am just making sure those pieces are laying completely flat. That is the key. Same thing if you were working with a chunky glitter, you kind of want to do the same process when you're working with this type of powder. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do another layer here, and you can see here when I'm applying that dip base, those pieces are coming to life. So you can see here there's some really pretty purple coming through, there's a really beautiful blue, there's some white, so you can really see those terrazzo pieces just shine through here once we applied that dip base. So now what I'm going to do, you totally could go ahead and dip back into the cupcake liner, but to prevent bulk, I'm going to go ahead and hand place tons of those little pieces here on the nail to just really build up that dimension and add more pops of color. Now, completely optional, if you dipped into that cupcake liner or into the jar and you like how that nail turned out organically, go ahead and rock that. You do not need to add any more, but I'm just showing you that you can always add more glitter pieces or more pieces like we're doing right now with the terrazzo pieces to any nail to really just build up that dimension or that sparkle or whatever you're trying to achieve. You can always hand place more. And since we are using dip liquids, sometimes if you have a faster drying dip liquid, you might need to do another layer of dip base and then go ahead and keep applying those pieces onto the nail. But I'm not having any issues with the current brand of the dip liquids that we're using. Now that I have all those pieces in place, I'm just gently pressing them down into the nail here, making sure they're laying really flat. And then to absorb any extra dip base, I'm just going to go ahead and dip that nail back into the cupcake liner here. And then I'm going to spend some time just pressing everything down, making sure everything is as flat as it can be. Again, we want to make sure that the dip powder is still keeping the shape of that nail and not creating any bulk. So this is what we're working with. I really love the placement. I love the colors. So I'm going to go ahead and do that other nail off camera just to save some time. I did the exact same steps. Now we're going to go ahead and protect those nails. I'm only going to clear encapsulate the 2 nails right here that we used skipping stones on to just protect those beautiful terrazzo pieces. Now I will say you can file and buff directly on top of those because the color is going to be the same color all the way through. Versus if you are working with a chunky glitter, normally a chunky glitter, the base of the chunky glitter is silver and then it has a color sprayed on top of it. So if you do not clear encapsulate it and you go ahead and file and buff, you are going to take away that beautiful color. That is not the case with these beautiful terrazzo pieces because they are a little bit softer and they're almost kind of like a clay base. They kind of feel like pieces of clay in my opinion. The color is all the way through. So if you do not clear encapsulate, you can still get away with file and buffing and not wrecking those beautiful pieces. But I just wanted to go ahead and encapsulate them just to help with that surface because those terrazzo pieces are a little bit bumpy, and I just wanted to kind of create more of like a flatter and kind of fill in the areas where it maybe wasn't so flat to the nail. And working with those terrazzo pieces is definitely a trust the process kind of a powder because it's going to give you a lot of different like bumpiness on the nail, but once you go ahead and file and buff, it is a breeze to work with. We are moving right along in this process. We are doing the activator. I am going to spend a little bit more time. I did 2 coats of activator on the nails that we use skipping stones on to really make sure all that activator was penetrating through all those layers, because those they're not clay pieces, but those pieces are a little bit thicker. So I really wanted to make sure that all that activator was sinking in to each layer. So I waited about 3 minutes before I went in with filing. The first step of filing, I'm just cleaning up underneath that press-on nail here. Then I'm going in with a buffer file and I'm just making sure. I am actually a pretty heavy-handed when it comes to filing and buffing, so I'm really focusing on those areas that were not as leveled when it came to those pieces, and they are filing down so nicely. It is by far way easier to file and buff these terrazzo pieces versus filing chunky glitter. It's a really like magical experience. It's really fun to work with, even though they can look a little intimidating on the nail and look a little bit bulky. They file like a dream and everything is just completely smooth. Now I'm going in with a little buffer here just to get in some more detail areas there. And I did the rest of the filing and buffing off camera. Now to the best part, we're going to do another layer of activator, and this is to me kind of just like a magical experience in itself because it's getting rid of all those filing and buffing lines. It's also settling in any of that powder that we may have disturbed during filing and buffing, giving it a clean, sleek finish. I just love this step so much. So I'm going to let that sit for about 45 seconds. Then I'm going to go in with a lint-free wipe, and I'm just going to go ahead and remove any extra activator that may be lingering on the nail here before we finish up with a dip top coat. This is definitely an important step because what's going to happen if I had any activator left behind on this nail and I went in with that finishing dip top coat, I could potentially risk hardening my brush, and that is like the worst part when you're finishing a mani, is contaminating either the whole entire bottle of the dip top coat or the brush itself. So now for the first layer of the dip top coat, I'm just going in and I'm covering the complete nail with 1 stroke. And don't worry about being too precise with this application. You really just want to do 4 to 5 quick strokes on the nail, and then always go ahead and wipe off that brush on a paper towel before sticking it in the bottle, just to make sure you are not contaminating, just in case there is any extra activator lingering. Then when you go in with the last layer of the dip top coat, you can be more precise in your application and really take your time. So we're just finishing up this nail here. I'm going to do the rest of the top coat off camera. And here's our finished mani. It's a very, just to me, refreshing, but yet kind of has a little bit of pulling like beachy vibes in it. But overall, I really like how this mani turned out. It's very simple. We have this beautiful blue, but then we have like the pops of color when we have those beautiful terrazzo pieces kind of shining through. I really like how we have that beautiful, it's almost like a gray light blue base, and then we have those pops of color shining through. Overall, I do really like the simplicity behind this mani. So everything that we did use in today's video can be found in that description box below. Again, these terrazzo piece dips, they're really, honestly, really easy to work with, even though they kind of look like, okay, how is that going to turn out in the end? But super fun to work with. Definitely recommend trying some. So again, everything is listed in that description box below. Don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you all in the next one.